Coca Cola were absolutely fine with that. Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow. Last week, when I was driving my kids home from school, my eldest, who is currently studying sociology, among other things, for A-level, happened to mention a historic fact about Coca-Cola that I found really surprising. And so I went on the internet and researched it, obviously being the content of this video. So let's see what that fact was, shall we? There's going to be several deviations, but just be patient. They are all connected. In 1884, a gentleman called Dr. John Pembleton was injured during the Confederacy, and his injuries directly, indirectly, led him to having a almost crippling morphine addiction. He managed to cure said morphine addiction quite happily, from his perspective, by swapping the morphine for cocaine. So he was happy. He cured morphine addiction with cocaine. But, you know, this is 1884 we're talking about. And obviously things were a bit different then, shall we say. Anyway, he went around telling everybody how wonderful cocaine was as a tonic, as a general cure-all, and therefore he decided to sell it mixed with wine as a general tonic. However, in 1885, because of the temperance laws, which led to what we know as prohibition, he couldn't do that anymore. So he made a soft drink that included the cocoa leaf, which is where the cocaine came from, and the African cola nuts, which is the caffeine part of Coca-Cola. So obviously the cocoa leaf and the cola nut, Coca-Cola. Actually, he didn't call it Coca-Cola, but that's where the name came from. Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola we all know and love as the brand. Obviously, we don't know it with the cocaine bit in it. Was officially established in 1892. Now, this is where it gets messy. Coca-Cola was developed, designed, and targeted to white people only. The marketing was directed at white people, and they only sold it in white people neighbourhoods. Now, this was during the 1920s, 1930s. Conversely, Pepsi started as being an African American beverage, and Pepsi as a company deliberately hired African Americans as sales representatives, used African American models in their advertising, and even had, now I'm not going to use the word, begins with N and ends in grow, but I will call it the African American Marketing Department, just to be, and was only sold in shops and areas that were predominantly African American. In fact, according to The Atlantic at the time, Coca-Cola and Pepsi were known as the white and the black drink. Now here we're going to take a little detour and talk about the ingredient in Coca-Cola that made it historically so controversial. Cocaine, was first used medicinally as a local anaesthetic. Previous to the discovery that it could be used as a local anaesthetic, most surgeries were performed under either chloroform or ether, which, while rendering somebody unconscious, didn't keep them unconscious and also made people feel very sick and prone to not any longer being alive, let's say. Outside of the operating room, cocaine was predominantly being used at that time as a treatment for the cold and flu. How it treats cold and flu, I don't know. Maybe you're just too out of it to care. It was in nasal sprays, which makes sense, liquid mixtures, and lozenges. The cocaine lozenges then grew in popularity and was also used for toothache, hay fever, travel sickness, and morning sickness during pregnancy. Slightly less medicinally, more like a vitamin supplement. Cocaine mixtures were also sold as just generalised tonics that could treat or help or aid, I quote, speakers, singers, athletes, businessmen, and all who suffer from brain fog, maybe I need some, and nervous stability. Oddly enough, cocaine was also indirectly responsible for making the practice of tattooing slightly more acceptable, because prior to using cocaine in tattooing, this is a person getting tattooed, not the tattooist, obviously. It was seen as quite barbaric because of the pain. But because the cocaine lessened the pain, it was considered more refined for polite society to get tattoos. Now, cocaine was very, very popular amongst polite society, white men, let's say, in academia, in the medical profession, you know, white middle class men who have haunted us since the beginning of man. Anyway, the decline in the popularity of cocaine amongst polite society began when black labourers started using cocaine once they discovered it made their extremely arduous physical labour of their average working day slightly easier. And as this became more popular among black labourers, the medical profession suddenly started reporting that this use of cocaine among black labourers led to an increase in crime and perverseness. It was then that the demonisation of cocaine began. And this is where I come back to Coca Cola. Because cocaine was no longer in favour with the, polite society due to its use of, being used, popularity between not only black labourers, but the poor and women, Coca Cola the drink, hello squid, started to fall out of favour. And this leads me to the interesting fact my child told me last week. Don't step on the keyboard, sweetheart. Cocaine was removed from Coca-Cola, replaced with sugar and more caffeine, by the way. Not for health reasons, but because of racism. They removed the cocaine from Coca-Cola in an effort to distance their brand from the black market. No, not the black market as in the dodgy dealings one, but the market that was targeting black people. So in the 1920s, 1930s, just to make this information clear, Coca Cola was considered a white man's drink. Pepsi was considered a black man's drink. And Coca Cola were absolutely fine with that. I have nothing more to add.